Jungkook had always admired his uncle J-Hope's best friend Kim Taehyung. He couldn't remember when exactly his admiration turned into something deeper, but it had. Tae, with his deep voice, charming boxy smile, and deep ocean eyes, had become the object of Jungkook's secret affection for years. Tae was older, sophisticated, and someone Jungkook looked up to. Yet, beneath that admiration, an unshakable feeling of attraction had grown. One evening, after spending too much time thinking about him, Jungkook gathered his courage and made the most daring decision of his life. He confessed his feelings. It had been a quiet evening at Tae's restaurant, a cozy place where he worked as both the owner and head chef. Jungkook had practiced his confession speech multiple times in front of his mirror, but when the moment came, all those words felt inadequate. He stood there, nerves on edge, as Tae dried his hands on a dish towel, looking at him with mild curiosity. Tae, I want to tell you something. I like you. I've liked you for a long time. Jungkook's voice trembled slightly as he faced the older man. The seconds that passed felt like an eternity. Tae blinked, clearly taken aback. Jungkook, I'm flattered, but you're still too young, and I don't think you know what you're asking for. Jungkook's heart plummeted. His worst fear came true. Tae didn't feel the same way. You don't have to feel the same. I thought I should tell you. Jungkook stammered, feeling his face flush with embarrassment. Tae sighed, placing a comforting hand on Jungkook's shoulder. Look, you're important to me, but this isn't something I can reciprocate. You're like a sweet little kid to me. I hope this doesn't make things awkward between us. Jungkook's throat tightened. A kid. The words stung worse than a sharp blade. He gave a weak nod and hurried out of the restaurant before his emotions betrayed him. Days passed, and the sting of rejection weighed heavy on Jungkook's chest. The thought of being seen as nothing more than a kid burned his pride. He didn't want Tae to think of him like that, especially not after he had mustered the courage to confess. So, in a fit of frustration and a desperate attempt to get Tae's attention, Jungkook concocted a plan. You know, his best friend. Charming, handsome, and confident, everything Jungkook thought would get under Tae's skin. You know, I need your help, Jungkook had said, biting his lip nervously. You know, always supportive, gave a teasing grin. Let me guess, this is about Tae, right? Jungkook nodded, feeling sheepish. I want him to realize he made a mistake rejecting me. Are you sure this is the best way? Fake dating me might make things messy. Yuno asked, raising a brow. It's the only way. I need to show him that I'm not just some kid. I'm serious. Jungkook replied stubbornly. With a reluctant sigh, Yuno agreed, and soon the two were inseparable in public. They visited Tae's restaurant regularly, sitting close, laughing loudly, and playing up their relationship for anyone who'd listen. It didn't take long for the rumors to spread. Jungkook was dating his best friend Yuno, and Tae was bound to notice. One evening, as they sat in the corner booth of Tae's restaurant, sharing a plate of pasta, Jungkook could feel the weight of someone's gaze on him. He looked up to find Tae watching from behind the counter, his expression unreadable. Jungkook's heart raced. For the first time, Tae's face didn't look calm or indifferent. His eyes were narrowed, and his jaw was tense. Looks like he's noticing. You sure about this? Yoonho whispered, nudging Jungkook under the table. Jungkook nodded, though he felt a mixture of nervousness and excitement building. Finally, Tae was reacting. As the evening wore on, Tae's expression only darkened. He seemed distracted, messing up orders and glaring in their direction more often than usual. Finally, when Jungkook stood up to leave, Tae approached. Jungkook. His voice was low and serious. Jungkook's stomach flipped as he responded instantly. Yes. Can I speak to you outside for a moment? Tae asks, his voice deep, calm but serious. Jungkook exchanged a glance with Yoonho, who gave a small nod. Taking a deep breath, he followed Tae out of the restaurant and into the cool night air. Tae's eyes were stormy with something Jungkook had never seen before. Was it jealousy? What are you doing? Tae demanded, his voice tight with frustration. What do you mean? Jungkook asked, feigning innocence. His heart was hammering in his chest. You know what I mean. This thing with Yoonho. You've been flaunting it around here like it's some sort of show. Why does it matter to you? You made it clear you don't care. Jungkook crossed his arms, his irritation flaring. Tae clenched his fists. I don't care who you date, but doing it in my restaurant. You're acting recklessly, and it's immature. Reckless. You think I'm being reckless because I'm seeing someone? Maybe I just want to move on since the person I really like rejected me. Jungkook's voice rose. Tae's jaw clenched tighter. You're just trying to make me jealous, Jungkook. But it's not going to work. Why would I care about making you jealous? I thought you didn't see me as anything more than a kid. Jungkook scoffed. The words hit their mark. Tae flinched, his expression softening for a moment, but then his anger returned. I complained to Jungkook. Tae said abruptly, his voice cold. Jungkook's eyes widened. You what? Jungkook asks in disbelief, his voice barely a whisper. I told him you've been hanging around here too much, getting involved with someone right under his nose. As a father he is not going to be happy, Jungkook. You're unbelievable. You don't want me, but you can't stand the idea of me being with someone else. Jungkook snapped, feeling hurt. It's not that, Tae said, trying to protest. Then what is it, Tae? Why does it matter so much to you? Jungkook's voice cracked, his emotions spilling over. Tae stood frozen, Jungkook's question hanging heavy in the air between them, unanswered. His lips parted, as if to speak, but no words came. Jungkook waited, his chest heaving with the weight of his own emotions, his eyes searching Tae's face for any sign that the older man might finally say something, anything, that would make this all make sense. But there was nothing. Just silence. Jungkook's patience snapped. You're unbelievable. Forget it. Jungkook muttered, shaking his head. Without another word, Jungkook stormed away, leaving Tae standing alone under the dim street light, watching helplessly as the younger man's figure disappeared into the night. When Jungkook arrived home, his father, Yoongi, was waiting for him in the living room, his expression dark with disappointment. Jungkook barely had time to catch his breath before Yoongi stood up, his arms crossed. "Sit down," Yoongi said sternly, his voice leaving no room for argument. Jungkook slumped onto the couch, feeling the weight of his father's eyes on him. Yoongi began, pacing in front of his son. "I heard from Chai. He told me about this nonsense with Yuno. What the hell were you thinking, Jungkook? Dating someone just to make someone else jealous? In public, in his restaurant. This isn't how I raised you to act." Jungkook's stomach twisted. He knew Yoongi was right, but the frustration, the heartbreak, it all came bubbling up. "You don't understand, Dad," Jungkook muttered. "What I understand is that you're acting recklessly, and it needs to stop. You're not a kid anymore, Jungkook. You need to be smarter than this." Yoongi interrupted. Jungkook clenched his fists in his lap, fighting back the tears of anger and humiliation that threatened to spill over. "I'm taking your phone," Yoongi said, holding out his hand. "What? No. You can't." Jungkook's eyes widened. "I can, and I will. You need time to think about your actions, not to hide behind your phone and distract yourself. Hand it over now," Yoongi said firmly. Reluctantly, Jungkook pulled his phone from his pocket and placed it in his father's outstretched hand. Yoongi gave a nod of finality before turning to leave the room. "You need to get your head straight, Jungkook. This isn't who you are," Yoongi said as he walked away. Jungkook sat there, feeling utterly defeated. His plan had backfired spectacularly, and now, not only had he lost Ty's attention, but he'd also disappointed his father. He swore to himself that he wouldn't make the same mistake again. He wouldn't contact Chai. Not anymore. Weeks passed, and though the sting of rejection lingered, Jungkook threw himself into his studies, determined to keep his mind off everything. His phone, still confiscated, made it easier to stay isolated. No texts, no calls, no temptation to reach out. He was doing fine, or at least, that's what he told himself. But while Jungkook was working hard to forget, Tae was struggling to stop thinking about him. At first, Tae tried to push aside the gnawing feeling that something was missing. He had told himself that it was for the best, that Jungkook would eventually move on. But as the days turned into weeks, the absence of Jungkook's presence in his restaurant, in his life, became too much to bear. He missed him. His laughter, his teasing smile, even the way Jungkook's eyes lit up when he was excited. Tae hated to admit it, but seeing Jungkook with Yoonwoo had ignited something in him, something he didn't fully understand until Jungkook had completely disappeared. One afternoon, Tae made a decision. He spent hours in his restaurant's kitchen, preparing all of Jungkook's favorite dishes, the ones he knew by heart from years of watching him devour them with a grin. He packed them carefully into containers, double-checking everything. He wanted it to be perfect. When he arrived at Jungkook's house, his heart pounded in his chest. He knocked on the door, trying to steady his breathing. His best friend J-Hope answered, raising an eyebrow when he saw Tae holding the bags of food. "Hey Chai, what are you doing here?" J-Hope asked, stepping aside to let him in. "I came to see Jungkook," Tae said quietly, his voice almost hesitant. J-Hope studied him for a moment, then sighed. He's upstairs, but he hasn't been in the best mood lately. Good luck. Tae nodded and made his way to Jungkook's room. He knocked softly, hoping Jungkook would be happy to see him, hoping this would make things better. Come in. Jungkook's voice called from inside, sounding distant and indifferent. Tae opened the door slowly, stepping into the room with the bags of food. Jungkook was sitting at his desk, surrounded by textbooks, barely glancing up at him. I brought you something. I made all your favorite dishes. Thought you might. Tae began, holding up the bags. But interrupting him, Jungkook says, to be continued. Next part is coming soon.